Call the member for Fisher.
Mr Deputy Speaker, it's very interesting that the person who's moved this is not here today. We are not here right now. He obviously doesn't have the courage of his convictions to hang around, doesn't have the courage of his convictions to hear the truth, because this side of the House is all about fairness. You see, over that side, you think you have a licence on fairness. Well, I'm here to tell you that you don't. Just take, for example, what's going on in my seat of Fisher. Mr Deputy Speaker, in my seat of Fisher, last night the Treasurer announced $530 million for priority upgrades to the Bruce Highway. Now, I note that the member for Grainler has come in this afternoon. The People's Choice has come in this afternoon to listen to the great infrastructure projects that are going on in Fisher. Infrastructure projects that he didn't deliver when he was the Infrastructure Minister. $530 million for upgrades to the Bruce Highway between Pine Rivers and Caloundra Road. Fantastic result. Another $120 million for an upgrade to the Deception Bay interchange. That's $650 million, which is going to directly benefit my constituents. Didn't do that when you were Infrastructure Minister, did you, the member for Grainler? Not a chance. Another $182.6 million for safety upgrades up and down the Bruce Highway. Another $4.9 million for local roads going to the Sunshine Coast Council. What this is going to result in is jobs, jobs and more jobs for Sunshine Coast locals, and it's going to mean that people are going to be able to get in their cars from Brisbane and drive up to the Sunshine Coast for the weekend without spending 4 hours in the car on the way home. Fantastic result for Sunshine Coast tourism and Sunshine Coast businesses. But you know what? We can't start these works on the Bruce Highway until the state Labor government, the state Palaszczuk government, actually releases a planning study, because the Palaszczuk government can't The Palaszczuk government can't provide. They can't provide this planning study, and we can't start these works until that planning study's been done. We've called on the Palaszczuk government time and time again to get this planning study done. And what's the result been? Nothing. Zip. Nada. The next project, the next infrastructure project, which is so important to Sunshine Coast locals, is the $10 billion National Rail Program announced last night. This is a rail program that the state Labor government can bid for to upgrade and duplicate the rail line from Beerburrum to Nambour. The ball is now in the state Labor government's, in their court. It is in their court now to apply for this funding to build this rail. I'm talking about the duplication of the North Coast rail line. I know it's north of Brisbane. I know that's a world that you can't see living in Brisbane. This is the North Coast railway line, the same line that you guys promised and failed to deliver time and time again. Well, I'm putting it fairly and squarely on the Palaszczuk government. Come good. Come good. Well, they should be, because the people of the Sunshine Coast will never forgive them if they, now that they know there's a $10 billion funding project and $10 billion in funding, it's now for them to bid for that $10 billion so my people, the people of the Sunshine Coast, can get access to that money. But that's not all. Mr Deputy Speaker, that's not all. The Treasurer announced last night a much smaller project, a much smaller funding, but it's one that's very, very important. And I know that everybody in this House would join with me, and that is $5 million for the Thompson Institute to go for treatment and for research into mental health. This is something that will save young people, it will help people with dementia, and it will research into suicide prevention. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.